listening to a Barrie Colts podcast with your hosts, Ryan Noble and Ryan McArthur.
You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch. You really are a heel. You're as cuddly as a cactus and as charming as an eel, Mr. Grinch. You're a bad banana with a greasy black peel.
Hello, and thank you for listening to a Barrie Colts podcast, or I guess in this instance, a very Merry Colts podcast, or whatever variation we use on Twitter.
Colts podcast, Christmas edition.
You might have noticed a slight variation in the intro. We'd like to thank Small Town Titans for allowing us to steal their theme without their knowing of it. But if you want, go on the YouTube and check out their page. They've got that great cover of You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch.
Yeah, it's a great cover of a classic Christmas tune. I love
so
that
good.
song.
The vocalist did such a good job on kind of doing that Tony the Tiger voice. Just knocked it out of the park. I am Ryan Noble, and with me again today is Ryan McArthur.
Yeah, Ryan McArthur here, ready for another episode of the Barrie Colts podcast.
It's been a little
excited
while.
To be back. Yeah,
we back into the swing of things. Anyways, how have you been doing, buddy?
Not bad. Doing a lot of scouting for Draft Pro, so I've been kind of spreading myself thin across the OHL, watching different teams. Still trying to keep up with the Colts, but I've missed a couple games in the last month, which is unfortunate. But yeah, just keeping busy.
Yeah, which is good, buddy. And I mean, it's at least you're keeping yourself busy, paying attention to other things going around in the OHL. So I mean, it's good. It's a good busy. It's a good busy to have. So, I guess we're going to just start off this episode today. Colts are coming off of a loss last night at BMC to the Oshawa Generals. They lost 4-1. If you missed the game, you can head over to the website. We've got a video recap as far as some points as well. But we're going to just do a quick breakdown of the game.
Yeah, and we got to stop podcasting after losses because soon we're going to be like the very angry, very Colts
angry Colts blog that jinxes the team every time that we decide that we're going to be doing a recording.
I know, exactly. Last time we podcasted, they were on a 3-game losing streak, and right now they've lost the last couple games, but 2 wins before that, so it's not so bad. So basically, look at the 4-1 loss to Oshawa last night. The Gens played a pretty good trap game, and Kyle Kaiser stymied the Colts once again. Kaiser's been kind of a problem for the Colts. He's been on fire, absolutely on fire. He's got the best stats of any goalie in the OHL, and recently got named to the USA preliminary roster for the World Juniors. So it's a tough team to play against. They've got the personnel to pull off that trap against the Colts. And our buddy Gene Pereira actually put out a pretty great article about how Oshawa did that and what the Colts sort of did wrong. So look at the Colts. They tried to finesse, work their way through the neutral zone, and it didn't quite work out that well. Plenty of turnovers in the neutral zone at their own blue line. And the same sort of thing happened in Owen Sound. So Gene got some quotes from Dale Howardchuk. And Howardchuk just said that, and I'll quote, "We are trying to be too fancy. It's something these young kids don't quite understand, and there's a reason why NHLers talk about getting pucks in deep." Which is kind of funny, because the NHLers get made fun of a lot for that cliche answer, get the pucks in deep, get the pucks in deep. So, but it's true. Like, there's a lot of truth to why they say that all the time, right?
No, absolutely. It's not just something that they ingrain into these kids when they're at this point in their careers. It's something that does translate at the next level as well, right? So it's not just a quick response to a question that you might not necessarily be anticipating. There's legitimacy to it. So, I mean, it's a tough situation, especially with last night with that trap, which, though not the most entertaining hockey to watch, these things, at the end of the day, these teams are trying to win games. And if you can play a team like Barrie and know that if you run that trap, I mean, Barrie got 22 shots on goal last night. Nothing great, and it was obviously just that they couldn't penetrate that. They couldn't get pucks in. They couldn't, and as the quote said, that's what they need to be doing, and it's not happening.
Yeah, it's definitely not a very exciting game to go watch. I was at the game last night, and I'd much rather see a track meet style game. Considering the skill that the Colts have, that's the game that they like to play. But I mean, you got to adjust to what the other team is showing you and the look that they're giving you. And Oshawa decided to play the trap, and good on them. They executed their game plan to perfection and did well against the Colts. Basically, all their goals, it felt like, came off basically willing the puck into the net. So they did a good job of trapping that neutral zone and got the W.
And look, like you said, most of those goals looked that way. It was just a matter of them forcing them through. And I mean, in a couple of the cases, they just kind of squeaked through. And it's not bad goals,
No,
but
yeah.
at the same time, they weren't the nicest. A couple of them kind of trickled through anyways, and just and that's just what happens if you're going to keep forcing pucks on net. And again, Oshawa got 26 shots last night. Not a bad amount, but not an overwhelming amount where you'd feel that the team would have gotten blown out of the water. But it's something that the Colts need to do. And yeah, that trap is boring to watch. But at the end of the day, as much as I think all fans would appreciate watching more of a run and gun style back and forth both ways, if you can shut a team down like the Colts with especially the top line's scoring threat, at the end of the day, it's about picking up W's, and Oshawa did it in the most boring style ever, but they did it, and that's what matters, right? So, I mean, I'd love the Colts to be an exciting team, but if they could even if they won games that way, at the end of the day, I'm more worried about the wins than I am, being able to scream a little bit louder at BMC because of the excitement of everyone.
Yeah, and the Colts, they did make adjustments to the lineup to kind of deal with this trap. Like 6 or 7 minutes left, they put Picard on the top line. So they moved, basically flipped Tortora and Picard, which actually ended up working really well. So playing a bit more of a forecheck, getting in after the puck. Picard did a great job with that, with Suzuki and Chiodo. Basically getting in there, causing havoc, getting the puck loose for Chiodo or Suzuki, who will get the puck to the point, get the puck on net, leads to offensive zone faceoffs, and hit repeat. So basically the same thing kept happening over and over again the last few shifts. So it was a little unfortunate that they decided to make that change late. The Chiodo Suzuki Tortora line is pretty good when teams are playing them with that sort of track meet style of game. But
absolutely.
In these styles of game, we need to kind of switch that up and get a little bit more of a forecheck going, like the coach said.
Well, I mean, it's exactly like you said. If it is one of those back and forth fast-paced games, that top pairing with Chiodo, Suzuki, and Tortora is great because, I mean, they've got the speed, but unfortunately when you're having to fight to get pucks in deep and you're just not being able to penetrate that neutral zone, you do need to shake it up. And unfortunately, as great as those three guys are, they just don't have that. And I hate talking about grit because, I mean, I don't. It's not my favorite topic, but you just need someone that has that edge that might be able to help force stuff like that in. And obviously, having Picard up there, it helps. So it's nice to have that top pairing of skill, but when it's not working, and to have a game play 48 minutes and then say, okay, well maybe we should try switching it up. Unfortunately, in that scenario, it's a little bit late. But it's nice to know that, you do have those guys like Picard who can jump onto that top pair and give them that little extra edge and a little bit of extra size as well. Even the couple times that they've moved Howardchuk up there, it's translated fairly well. So, it's just something that they need to maybe implement a little bit sooner in a game.
Yeah, I'd like to see them spread the grid around a little bit. It does seem to work a lot better with those lines set that way. The thing about having Picard on the top line with Suzuki and Chiodo is he will get the puck for them on the forecheck and force those turnovers. And he has the skill to play with Chiodo Suzuki in spades. He's an extremely talented forward. So the other part about it, though, that bugged me was he can having Picard there. There's kind of someone to stick up for Suzuki. Suzuki in the game last night took a cross check from Matt Broussard after the whistle, right to the chest. Kind of took some cheap shots, and there was really no one there to answer the bell for him. Unfortunately, the refs didn't call a penalty, and which was absolutely ridiculous on that play. You're looking at former first overall pick in the OHL, the top draft eligible player in the Ontario Hockey League for the 2019 NHL draft, should not be taking that sort of abuse. It was way over the top and totally deserving of a penalty.
Mm-hmm.
But if the refs aren't going to call it, you got to have somebody out there with them. Picard would be perfect. Maybe Howard Chuck. I think spreading out that skill and grit in that top six is the way to go.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely in a game like that against Oshawa, when things are getting chippier and more cheap shots and more stuff like that, and when the game starts trending that way, you got to protect your top player.
And it's just kind of interesting to see, because normally in these scenarios, especially when you're trailing, it's usually the team that's losing that ends up having that edgier side when they get frustrated. But it's a little different to see the team that's up to start doing stuff like that. And you mentioned about like Suzuki being like obviously a top prospect. He's a star player in the OHL. You know, even if it was somebody else, I mean, the league can't allow guys to be taking advantage of liberties like that anyways.
Exactly.
The league needs to, you need to penalize. Like, I realize I'm not going to sit here saying that the Colts were struggling to get man advantages last night. I mean, they had 7 power play opportunities. So they were obviously getting a healthy share of man advantages. But just because you've had that many, officials should put the whistles away just because Barrie's had however many more. I think they were shorthanded 3 times last night, I think. So they just need to enforce the rules. And I mean, you just need consistency throughout the game. And you can't allow guys to, whether it be a star player or even just like a fourth line grinder, guys can't be cross-checking dudes in the chest.
Yeah. Like Suzuki ended up complaining to the ref about that, and he never complains. He's honestly very level-headed. He's not a whiner, but that was just way over the top, and lots of problems there. But hopefully that doesn't happen again, and that's not an issue anymore, because he did get knocked out of a game earlier this year for a similar thing, and it's not a good look for the league.
No, not at all.
It seems like refs in the OHL right now they're basically mandated to call certain kinds of plays, and it's the feel for officiating is maybe getting lost there. I know that the OHL is in their ear a lot about calling certain types of plays and trying to make it more black and white when there's a lot of gray areas in hockey, and it's kind of taking the feel away from the officials. So don't want to blame the officials too much. It's definitely a tough job, but you got to call a penalty there on Broussard.
Absolutely. I mean, especially when you did make all those calls earlier in the game. Like, it's not like it was a game where the refs were not calling anything. To have almost 10 power plays in a game, it's great to see them making calls, but just keep making calls. Don't stop calling them because it's late in the game or one team has had more man advantages. They should and that's one thing I hate, is when you hear people say, "Oh, you can expect the refs to do an even up call." It's like they shouldn't be evening the game out. If one team is being stupid and they're like checking dudes dirty and like all that, they should just keep calling it. They shouldn't worry about it being an even amount. Like, if a team doesn't want to be spending so much time in the penalty box, and trust me, as a Colts fan, we can appreciate having a team that spends a lot of time in the penalty box.
Oh yeah.
Just stop taking penalties. You shouldn't not be called because the other teams had so many man advantages. It should be up to the players and the coaching staff to tell the guys, stop taking penalties, stop doing stupid things, and not allow just the officials. The officials should be consistent and they should keep making calls, but they also, you just need to be consistent. And unfortunately it was an issue there, and that absolutely should have been a call. It's shocking that it wasn't the case, but here we are, and So
what do we got next on the list?
We're going to talk about goaltending. I think we got a little bit ahead of ourselves there. We jumped to stats. So pretend that this was a smoother transition into goaltending. Colts still, not to, and I hope I don't upset the people at PETA here, but in the interest of kicking a dead horse, the Colts are still running three goalies here, and it's None of them have looked bad. None of them have looked particularly outstanding. At what point do we, and I mean, I think that we said this before the season even started. Like I said, we've been talking about this, but 3 goalies. None of them have been outstanding, and you are starting to see goalies or teams that do have 3 goaltenders, like Niagara recently. They're starting to move that third goalie.
Yeah, Niagara. I was in Hamilton watching Hamilton Niagara, and Christian Sparaglia had a really good game, and I guess that was kind of the reason that Niagara thought that he could handle the backup role. They ended up moving Colton Inns, and now they're down to 2 goalies. It seems like it's the time where teams are going back that are in the 3 goalie system are going to 2 goalies now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's getting to the point where hopefully something gets done because, yeah, you look at the Barrie Colts goalies, the numbers aren't too great, and that has to be because of not being able to get those consistent starts and get a feel for the puck and all that, right?
Well, even just as far as practice is concerned, I mean, even when you're practicing, guys aren't getting to even get a good practice in because you're trying to juggle that third goalie into the mix, And I mean, like Kai Edmonds, for example, he was not getting a lot of games earlier in the season, and when he would play, you could see I don't want to say he was struggling, but he wasn't looking the same as he did when he was getting a lot more games previously. But now that we've actually seen him get a little bit more games, coming in relief a couple times there last week, and then getting the start there last night, he's looking better. And it's a matter of getting the feel for the puck. And if you're only playing one game every 2 weeks and maybe filling in for a goalie after a rough night, it's really hard to get the feel. It's really hard to get the groove, and it's kind of getting tough. Like in Greaves was looking like he was going to get some games, and now he's not really getting any games, and it's just a really tough spot to kind of hope that whoever you're going to randomly throw into goal is going to have a good night when he's kind of been on the sidelines for however many games, or he's gotten however many practices in, or however many fractions of practice. So I mean, it'll be interesting to see, especially with the deadline coming up, if they do end up deciding to move somebody. But we'll kind of touch on that a little bit later as well.
Yeah, we'll talk about the trade deadline and potential plans for the Colts a bit later. But before we do that, let's discuss the newest Barrie Colts forward, Jake Tortora. So in our last podcast, we discussed the NA Central Scouting's tweet about the Colts getting a former draft pick in a quote-unquote messy tangle. And at the time, we didn't even clue into the fact that it could be Tortora because of the situation. Really interesting that it ended up being him. Original draft pick of the Colts in the first round in 2015, 19th overall, moved to Kitchener. And you got more on that trade there.
Yeah, right? So the initial deal, when that tweet initially came out, we were speculating that it would have been McBain that was going to be the one. That's who a lot of people seem to be kind of throwing out there as far as names. When ironically it was actually the guy who we got the pick for McBain for, being Tortora. When the Colts originally traded him after drafting him, they sent him to the Rangers for a 15th round pick in 2016. And then to reacquire him, they traded a 15th round pick in 2019. Conditions on that deal were that if he did end up playing a game with the Colts, which he obviously has, that 15th round pick would turn into a 3rd round pick in 2020, which is Oshawa's, and then a second in 2023, which is Sudbury's. One more condition in the deal is that if they end up, if Tortora comes back as an overager, the Rangers will get Barrie's 2nd round pick in 2024, which the Colts obviously have an abundance on. Maybe not. And another thing was the original deal also saw the Colts getting a 3rd round pick in 2020, 21, and 22. With the second deal, all of those are off the table. They've been lifted, so that's no longer part of the trade. There were some people that didn't really care for the deal, just because they did get that gifted pick for him being defected, and luckily, I mean, McBain didn't even end up coming to Barrie anyways.
And the deal was Barrie ended up paying a couple second-round draft picks for a guy that they drafted initially anyways, and they didn't even get 3 years of his services. So I'm not really sure why everyone has an issue with this deal with Tortora. Makes no sense to me, but people are always going to hate on the Barrie Colts, and that's something I've learned, especially since joining Twitter a year and a half ago.
Absolutely.
Not the most favorite team in the eyes of other fan bases. The Colts do tend to win a lot of games. They always have a winning record. And that penalty total, like, people definitely view the Colts as a very dirty team, but we like to refer to it as gritty, right?
It's gritty, and I mean, that's just the style that they play. That they've obviously been implementing with Howard Chuck anyways. So obviously he likes that style. You can see it in his son Ben's play, and it's something that's not going to change. People have been calling for it for a while, and I think at some point you just need to realize that some things might not change, and this just happens to be one of them. But I feel like if there was an issue with the way that everything played out with reacquiring Jacob, the league would have either not allowed it, and if they do look at it and decide that for whatever reason, which again, in my opinion, I don't think it was as bad as a lot of people are making it out on social. Look for the league to implement something in the future. But as of right now, there was nothing really that was technically fishy about it.
No, I don't think so. So, anyways, we got Tortora. Tortora's on the Colts, which is great. He's born June 1999, so he's actually got one more year of eligibility. Jake Tortora is from Victor, New York, in the U.S. He actually played his minor midget hockey with the Don Mills AAA squad. I watched a lot of minor midget hockey that year, and the things about him that really stood out for me was just a crazy dynamic player with eye-popping skill, exceptional speed. He's just really fast, electric, crazy good puck skills, and like when he was playing back then, there was a lot of oohs and ahs in the crowd. He was very exciting to watch. So, back then with the minor midget AAA team, he put up pretty good numbers. Then he went on to do 2 years with the United States National Development Team program. So, 2015, 2016, he was with the U17 team. Put up 31 points in 50 games. 16-17, he was with the US U18 team. Put up 38 points in 51 games, which is pretty solid. And then ended up at Boston College last year, 2017-2018. Had 13 points in 34 games played. And I guess he started the year with Boston College, 2 points in 4 games this season. And just wanted to change. I guess things weren't working out for him at BC.
No, and apparently he was not even really getting a lot of games. I was speaking to somebody that actually covers that team, and he was scratched a bit. So he just wasn't, I feel like he just wasn't getting the opportunity to continue his development the way that he'd hoped. And I mean, and another thing about his game that I think we should definitely mention is his shot. Like, that guy's shot. It's like, you look at that game where he got the hat-trick there. Every one of those goals was just a ridiculous up-top shot. And I mean, and his celebrations too, my goodness. He's so much fun to watch, and he's just such an energetic guy. His speed, as you mentioned, is just incredible. He's just a really, really fun player to watch. And especially if he's playing with that top pairing, that's just a lot of skill, man. A lot of people that are a threat to put pucks in the net. And how many goals? 7 goals he's got already?
Yeah, 7 goals and 2 assists in 6 games with the Barrie Colts. It's real solid.
It really is.
Started off the first 4 games. He got goals in every game. Is 1 goal in the first 3, and then 3 goals in the 4th game. So he was sitting at 6 goals in 4 games. And that 4th game, which was a 4-2 win against Mississauga recently, Gene Pereira started a nickname for him, calling him Roof Daddy, with those beautiful shots, like you said, with that wrist shot. He's got that beautiful quick release on the wrister, and it gets up top pretty quick.
He has that little like drag that he does with it too, right before he gets that shot off, and it's just incredible. And goalies just don't even see it. Like you see the puck go in, and then they don't react to it after the light's already going behind them. Awesome. So and I mean the team obviously needs that, and he's just been such a welcome addition. That it's easy to tune out people complaining about any possible foul play in his return.
Yeah, it's interesting. The Colts are 3-3 in the last 6 games. Those 6 games, there's been a lot of up and downs and a lot of goals. Like 7-5 win against Erie, then lost 6-2, and then an 8-2 win, 4-2 win, and then the last couple games, 3-1 loss, 4-1 loss. So a lot of goals in those games. The Colts have been getting into sort of a lot of those track meet games during his first four games with the Colts. Mm-hmm. And I guess Owen Sound and Oshawa in the last couple games figured out we got to slow this down. And they both came out with a good game plan to beat Barrie. And that was kind of what we were referencing to earlier.
Yeah, and I mean, it's obvious right now to say that, like, unless the Colts are scoring a bunch of goals, it sounds stupid to say. Like, just to look at this past 6 games, I mean, in the games they've lost, they've scored a maximum of 2 goals. Mm-hmm. It was the 1 goal in the last 2 games, and then 2 in the first loss there in the second of the 6 games we're talking about. But then when we win, like 7-5, 8-2, 4-2. And it's they're either scoring at will, or they're just being completely held off the score sheet for the most part. So it's just interesting to see how they're going to kind of get things to work out moving forward, and how they're going to implement that top pairing, and just.
Yeah, great move by Tortora to come over to the Colts. He lit it up at Maple Leafs camp, development camp in the summer. He got a hat trick in 1 game, 2 goals in another game. He was just lighting up the scoreboard. So it's a good move for him to come to the OHL, and he's off to a great start, and he's fitting in well with Barrie. He looks good on that first line with those guys. Like we said earlier, like it might make more sense to spread that skill through the top 6, the skill and grit, and kind of get more of a balance. Yeah. But yeah,
and even if he were to end up going to the bottom half of that top 6, like, I mean, that just might even mean more production for him anyways. Instead of going up against top pairings, all of a sudden you're going against a team's second line, and that could just translate into more goals for him anyways. So it's not necessarily a bad spot for him. Also, even if that is the case, he's still playing with skilled players, because the Colts are pretty top heavy as far as that top 6 goes for goal production. So
the team is looking good. Like, I think it has to be based on situations. Yeah. So like we were saying earlier, if they're playing the trap, maybe spread out the grit. If it is a track meet, that skill line will work well. And if the game isn't kind of getting out of hand with a chippiness after the whistle, that line can work. So hopefully they figure it out and make the adjustments as they go. It's all new. Having a new player into the top 6, it's pretty cool. So glad to have Tortora on the Colts. Awesome.
And obviously you could expect there to be a possibility of some changes anyways, as we got the trade deadline is approaching. It'll be interesting to see kind of what the game plan for the team moving forward is, if they're looking to just keep trying to add pieces, or if they're going to look to maybe consider the possibility of maybe getting some picks on the shelf that they right now don't really have in abundance, to say the least.
Yeah, they're in a very interesting situation. The trade deadline approximately a month away. It's usually the second week of January, I believe, where they lock down the rosters. There'll be a freeze during the World Junior Championship, and early January there's lots of action. So kind of it's difficult to tell what the Colts should really do. There's basically, we'll spell out the situation here. So next year they have a 2nd round pick, which is Erie's 2nd round pick. So that'll be a pretty high selection. That'll be in the early 20s. And they have some extra picks. They got some extra an extra third round pick, and they're doing pretty good for next year. But from 2020 to 2024, there's no seconds for those 5 years. And 2020 and 2021, they're looking for picks. It's interesting in the OHL. Fans seem to want their team to either buy or sell, and to me, there's something about being consistently competitive that is intriguing. But at the same time, it's kind of give and take. Like, you got to make sure you got those draft picks stocked for the future, and we never like to see good players go. But with no second round picks for 5 years from 2020 to 2024. It'll be interesting to see what they do, because it's got to be tempting to want to replenish something to the draft cupboard there.
For sure. And I mean, at the same time, like you said, when we do still, I mean, the Colts are a competitive team, and at the same time, like with some of the guys, you kind of want to try to take advantage of having some of this high-end skill while you definitely have it. But at the same time, you just, obviously that's out of our hands, and I'm sure Ford is working hard to, come up with his game plan moving forward.
Yeah, and the Colts have a very competitive team this year. I wouldn't count them out at all this season. Like, it wouldn't surprise me, because if I was another team that's building up for this year, I wouldn't want to see the Colts in the playoffs, especially early. It depends where they finish. Right now, they're 7th. I'd imagine with the team they have that they're going to move up. But man, like, just with the grit that they play with, and just they got grit, they got skill, they got a bit of everything. So it's a pretty dangerous team to face in the playoffs.
And as we mentioned, decent goaltending.
Yeah, exactly. So right now it's going to be really hard to see what they're going to do. Like, you could see them kind of going for it next year, because they've got a lot of strong players returning next season. So maybe doing a bit of selling this year could happen, but I mean, I guess we'll wait and see to what Ford and his staff decide to do. But yeah, it should be pretty interesting, actually, with that deadline coming up and clock's ticking on that, eh?
Yeah, and he's got a game plan. It'll be exciting to see what he does end up doing anyways with the team. I mean, I don't feel like there's a wrong answer either way. Mm-hmm. It's easy to kind of lean towards one way or the other, but I think that a case could be made for either route, And, I'm not going to pretend to have a better idea than anybody else, especially the GM. So we just got to kind of sit back, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out anyways.
Yeah, and I mean, they've got some guys that could bring in a really hefty return to replenish those second-round picks. And the depth in the lineup's pretty strong, that you could end up in a situation where you could move a top player and not really give too much up in terms of depth in the lineup. Like, there's guys that are playing roles that like lower than where they should be, or maybe they could be if they did decide to make one of those moves. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do there.
No, absolutely. We touched a little bit on the World Junior break coming up. So it would be silly not to include the two Colts that were given tryouts here anyways, or to the initial roster. Picard obviously being one of them with the Czech Republic, and defenseman Joey Keane with Team USA.
Yeah, congrats, boys. So they're named the World Junior preliminary rosters for the respective country. Joey Keane, third-round pick of the New York Rangers with Team USA. Yeah, and Matej Picard, the gritty forward, fourth-round pick of the Buffalo Sabres.
You know where you're at.
Yeah, all the best to you guys in your quest to make those teams. It's a bit unfortunate because the Colts are going to have to figure out a way without them while they're gone, but hopefully they make the team. It's best for them and for their career to get that experience. So even though selfishly we'd like them to be on the Colts for as many games as possible, definitely cheering for them to make those teams and yeah.
For sure, yeah. And I mean, juniors is just such an exciting time of year. It's always funner when you got some Colts in the mix. Be nice to get some of them on, Team Canada. But
yeah,
I'm happy to see them go anywhere. No, absolutely, like no doubt. But
Yeah, a little disappointed not to see Ryan Suzuki named, but I mean, when you look at Hockey Canada, there is just tons of good players, and lots of great players have to be. Unfortunately, they can't be named the team. They can't have everybody. They should actually have a Canada A and B in the World Juniors.
No, absolutely.
They got enough.
They've got the depth to do it, right?
Yeah.
So, and I mean, when he does, like next year, it'll be a different story for him. And just think about how much better he'll be next year, anyways, right? So speaking of guys that are getting better, the Colts farm system, anyways, there's some guys putting up some pretty serious numbers right now.
Yeah, Nate. So right now the Colts are doing those farm reports on the board,
which are great, by the way.
Yeah,
whoever implemented that, great work.
I love it, especially me. I'm like big into the OHL prospects, as I've mentioned a number of times on these podcasts. But a guy we really liked a lot during training camp was Nate Hanley. We actually thought that he did well enough in training camp to earn a spot on the roster, but that didn't end up happening. Basically, he's got a commitment to Northeastern University, and he was the Colts' 14th round pick last year. So there's a bit of red tape to go through and recruiting to do to convince him to break that commitment and come to Barrie. But he is absolutely lighting it up. He was the U.S. HPL Player of the Week and plays for the PAL 16U Islanders. And his stats are 22 goals, 28 assists, 50 points in 15 games. That is
insane production.
So yeah, that's very promising. Another guy, Christian Filippetti, playing with the Aurora Tigers Junior A, a goaltender. Right now sitting with 2.78 goals against average, 901 save percentage. And 2001, Ryan Beck, Bell Tire, 16. He's averaging about a goal per game. So that's pretty strong. So those are the three that show up on the board. Other guys that we like are Austin Durazio, playing with the Newmarket Hurricanes, and Eric Russell, playing with the Toronto Junior Patriots. So it'll be interesting to see how those guys progress through the year. We'll be providing updates. I'm actually thinking of doing a prospect post to kind of update on where the prospects are at. So I'm not doing it anytime very soon, but you can expect that in the near future.
Well, I'm sure by that point, Hanley will have like 100 points for 30
points,
games.
Yeah.
So, just filthy numbers, man. That's disgusting.
Yeah, he's got some crazy good skill. His puck skills are amazing, and I love how he does a few little fakes, gets the goalie to bite, and then puts it upstairs. I've seen a number of videos of those types of goals. I took some video of him at Colts camp, and he did that a couple times, and also like seeing some video of him playing with PAL Islanders. He's been continuing to do that, so good on him. Hopefully the Colts can end up signing him down the road.
Oh, absolutely. And so I guess we can move on to the next part. Tyler Tucker making Sportsnet's, 10 biggest splashes in the CHL?
Yeah, 10 biggest surprises, actually.
Boy Tucker.
In the CHL. So that is, anytime like a Colt makes like the national media, that's huge. National media attention is amazing. And he made that article. So yeah, biggest surprises in the CHL. So they obviously don't listen to Barrie Colts podcasts,
no,
then,
they don't,
right?
Which is unfortunate for them. I feel like they'd be a little bit more informed if that were the case. But they want to play Little League. That's their call.
Yeah, honestly, we're not surprised at all. Tucker is just amazing. St. Louis Blues did an amazing job picking him in the draft in the 7th round. What a steal! Unbelievable draft pick by them.
And he's doing, we, like you said, we've been saying that he was going to be great, and we knew he'd be great. But, he's just exceeding expectations, even that I think that we put forward of him,
For sure.
He's already more than doubled his goal production from last season. He was 7 goals right now. He's four assists away from his total through 59 games last year. Reminder, he's played 28 games, 16 assists on the season, so a total of 23 points.
And not even on the first power play with that production.
Which is crazy.
He's continuing it, which is amazing.
I would love to see him on it. and just to see what his numbers would be like. I mean, the guy's just firing the puck all the time. He's already close to his total for shots last season. He's got 82 shots on goals this season. I mean,
unbelievable.
Pair of power play goals.
Yeah, Howardchuk had some quotes on that article, and he said a few things about Tucker there. One of the quotes is, added offensive flair to an already solid defensive foundation. And the other one is, throwback player with sneaky skill is a quote he used to describe Tucker. So the throwback part is like the big hits. We've talked about that before. He's just absolutely mucking guys.
Yeah.
And he's sneaking, like he's got that sneaky skill. Like he's really good at passing the puck, great playmaker, and he's got a big heavy shot from the point.
Yeah. And I mean, he hasn't, like, with the increase in point production, like you said, he hasn't stopped with the big hits. He's still just running over guys. You know, I mean, even his penalty numbers kind of reflect that a little bit. Yeah. But you know, like it's not a problem. He's still, you know, as long as he's maintaining what it is that kind of got the acknowledgement. And actually, at bluesrants.com. They've had me kind of help out with a couple things there with them. And I mean, Blues fans are very excited about Tucker, and they're always, you know, Ray, who helps run the site over there, is constantly, you know, asking for updates and how he's doing. And I mean, obviously, I've got nothing but glowing things to say about Tyler Tucker. And I know that the fans over there in St. Louis are just so excited to see not only how he's doing, but, you know, I think they're just anxious to kind of get him in their system. And
awesome. Yeah, he left quite the impression after training camp. A lot of talk about him as a 7th round pick. A lot of them are very happy about his selection, and I mean, good on the Blues scouts for finding him. Like awesome job.
And one of the things that they had told him in camp was they wanted to see him work on his offensive ability, which was one of the things that they were telling me about. And I mean, he's done that. He's obviously doing that. And I mean, as the season progresses, I wouldn't be surprised to see him get more looks maybe on the power play. Again, 2 power play goals. That's something to look at. The team isn't like dominant on the power play, right? So I mean, you figure only a few guys have more power play goals than him. Ben Howardchuk leading the way with 6 power play goals on the season. Second up is Tortora already, who's got 3 in 6 games.
Yeah,
3 in 6 games.
Unbelievable.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. No, it's pretty awesome that there's quite a bit of offense from the Colts. They're getting in real high scoring games, so lots of goals for, but also lots of goals against. So. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this lineup going forward, because you do have guys like Tyler Tucker on the second power play. So it'll be interesting to see what they decide to do at the trade deadline, and yeah,
we just gotta sit patiently and just kind of see how that plays out. We're doing a little better for time than I'd anticipated. We got a little bit carried away with last week's episode.
Yeah, 84 minutes last time.
It was like an hour and 20 minutes. I think the episode before was like 45. So we're working on consistency here, guys. We're trying to make it so that, you know, you can kind of plan when you want to fit us into your daily routine.
And not be like, when are these guys going to stop talking?
When is this going to be over? Yeah. So one of the things that we were discussing as to whether or not we would get into is just kind of some of the guys. And obviously, former Colts who are in the NHL, one thing that's happened since the last episode was Tanner Pearson got traded from the Los Angeles Kings to the Pittsburgh Penguins, which obviously I follow heavily, being a lifelong Penguins fan. And my goodness, has Pearson ever been a beautiful fit in Pittsburgh. I mean, to go from LA, where he played, I think it was like 17 games, he got 1 assist. The trade obviously saw Carl Hagelin go to LA. Since being in Pittsburgh, he's played 11 games. He's got 3 goals, 2 assists. He's playing on the second line with Evgeny Malkin for the most part, and former Leafs favorite Phil Kessel. Yeah. And he has just meshed so well with that team. I mean, his speed, he just shoots the puck so quickly, and that's something that's really, you know, Evgeny Malkin is a great passer. People think of him as a shooter, but I mean, one of the areas of his game that's just so strong is he's just has these sneaky passes, and Pearson's always just there with the one-timer, and I mean, that's no surprise to us that that's the style that he's going to play, just to throw pucks on net, and is translating. I mean, he's been a a lot of my Yinzer friends in Pittsburgh were. They loved Carl Hagelin, so especially when you see a guy coming in with 1 point in 17 games, it was a bit of a hard sell at first. But right now, Penguins fans love Tanner Pearson.
Yeah, I'm so jealous of you. I'm a big Toronto Maple Leafs fan, and the Leafs have never drafted a Barrie Colt and don't have any on the team, obviously. Had never traded for one either. And Pearson was amazing in Barrie. Pretty sure he got 50 goals one season, tons of points for the Colts. His picture's on the Activia Sportsplex in Kitchener. So he's a big deal, and it's good that he got moved to Pittsburgh because LA was struggling.
Just terrible.
Yeah, so both teams kind of needed a bit of a shakeup, so it's kind of a good player swap, and it's
a little change of scenery mentalities.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and Hagelin hasn't been too bad in LA. So I mean, I think it's worked out for both guys. He was definitely struggling in Pittsburgh, and he just, it's just one of those situations where, you take a guy who's not doing what you think he could be doing, try him out on another team, and in some cases it helps out. And in this case for Tanner, it's been great, and what I would love to see is to update one of those Tanner Pearson Stanley Cup banners at BMC, but instead of it being LA, I'd love to see it with Pittsburgh. Let's get some Pittsburgh banners at Barrie Molson Center or whatever they end up calling the venue come the end of this calendar year. So
yeah, it's great. It's great to see former Barrie Colts doing well on the show. Obviously, Mark Scheifele's absolutely lighting it up with the Jets. Svetch's having a good rookie season in Carolina. AA is looking really strong on the Red Wings. I was watching the Red Wings last night against the Leafs on record because I was at the Colts game, so I had to watch it later. But AA is just absolutely flying around, which is no surprise to us because we saw him do that when he was in Barrie. And lots of guys doing well. I mean, LeBanc, the list goes on and on. Ekblad.
He's getting a lot of good minutes in San Jose, LeBanc.
Yeah, Dale Hawerchuk's done a good job with basically developing these guys and turning them into pros, which is great. It's great to see.
Oh, absolutely. And you always like to see guys who, obviously were in Barrie do well. You want to see them do well in Barrie, but NHL, you want to see them move on and do well. And I mean, a lot of these guys, like all the ones especially that you mentioned, I know a lot of people that are fans of Detroit who just love Athanasiou. And I mean, how can you not? His speed, he's just such an exciting player to watch. And that's somebody that I would love to see on my team as well. But anyways, you can't get all of them, even though we've only got one right now. But it's working out well, so that makes me happy. Hopefully the Leafs can get a former Colt for you one day. You guys almost had TJ Fergus when he was at camp, and I mean.
Well, they did. Yeah, it's interesting. I can't believe that they've never drafted a Barrie Colt. I mean, I don't know. That it just kind of seems shocking to me, but. I don't know. Maybe they just when they see that jersey, they just get turned off. I don't know. A lot of people seem to be that way.
Yeah, no, totally.
Not me though.
No, absolutely not. It's good. Who knows? Maybe in the future with some of these guys coming out right now too, and you never know.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe Tortora will get another look at a shot there, and
for sure.
With his progress, and honestly, like even at his last showing, he did really well. And a lot of the stuff that when I was doing some reading on some of the guys who were scouting him at that, like a lot of people were saying about like his maturity, how ahead of his age that he looked, and it's something that like now he's just going to be even better. So. You might end up with a pretty good player there. Who knows? Unless somebody else ends up coming in and snagging him.
We'll see. But either way, the Leafs are doing pretty good.
Yeah, you definitely win that. My team has been struggling.
They're looking pretty good lately. So this isn't, though, the very Toronto Maple Leafs podcast. So what do we got upcoming for our Colts here? Quick turnaround. Tonight they play Sudbury at 7:05 p.m., and then Sunday, they play Sault Ste. Marie at 2:07 p.m. So who do you think is going to get the nod in net for those? My guess would be Zukov.
I would say Zukov tonight.
And Edmonds maybe again on Sunday?
I mean, unless they're going to kind of just flip the coin and throw Greaves in so he kind of gets a game. I'd anticipated that Edmonds was going to get last night, which I voted for on Justin Staples' Twitter poll. I think I was the first person that voted for Edmonds, and I started seeing everyone else kind of voting for Zukov. I'm like, oh no, everyone's going to make me look wrong, but it ended up being him anyways. Zukov, obviously, being with Sudbury tonight, I mean, I'd be shocked if he wasn't to get the green light. I guess the only one that to me, that's a toss-up. Will be that afternoon game in Sault Ste. Marie on Sunday.
Yeah, each goalie's kind of gone through their hot and cold streaks, and there's been a bit of lack of consistency, but all three goalies are super strong, and part of the problem is those turnovers in the neutral zone, like we were talking about earlier. It kind of leaves them hanging out to dry more often than not.
Yeah.
Too often, I should say. So, yeah. Anyways, hopefully they sort out the three goalie system soon, because being able to get a regular starts would definitely help everybody. So
No, absolutely. And I mean, Sudbury right now is just kind of really running away with things. We're only 2 points behind Niagara in the standings. Niagara's got a game in hand, so a win tonight will get them. Well, actually, we'll have them pass them in the standings if they get the win tonight. So, and I mean, they're riding a 4-game win streak right now. They're 7-2-0-1 in 10 games. I mean, that's a team that's just hot right now. And if you take a look at, Barrie's lost their last 2 games, and they're, running 50% over the last 10 games. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I'd be shocked if like we said, if Zukov didn't get the nod tonight. But who knows? Maybe they'll throw things out and just, maybe just toss Greaves in there tonight. Just throw him to the Wolves.
The Wolves, literally.
No better lack of term. Man, that's 2 comments that I feel like if Peta was listening to our podcast, if they'd get triggered over.
Yeah, so hopefully they get a couple wins. Those are a couple big games, and either way, it's going to be super fun to watch. The OHL is obviously very, very exciting. Hopefully Sudbury and Sault Ste. Marie the trap.
Well, we got 2 winning teams. Sault Ste. Marie is the same thing right now. They're riding a 3-game win streak right now, and they sit at the top of the West Division. So we got a couple tough games on the. This was a tough week for the Colts too. I mean, obviously Oshawa's been doing pretty well, and by pretty well, I mean 2 losses in the last 10 games.
Pretty strong.
Yeah, I mean it will be a good chance for the Colts to maybe build some confidence over if they can get these next 2 wins and just kind of go from there.
Nice.
And I think that was pretty much the majority of what we had. We just cracked in under the hour here, so that's not too bad. So this is the part in the show where we start shamelessly asking you to subscribe to the podcast on whatever application you are using us on. Like we said, we're now on we're on Spotify now. We've been on Google Play and iTunes for a while now. So if you haven't subscribed at this point, there's no excuses. But we'll overlook it if you hit that subscribe button now.
And it's awesome how many people are listening. We get the numbers for listens, and it's pretty strong. So it's great. Keep listening, keep tuning in, and we'll keep bringing you the scoop.
No, absolutely. And also you need to follow all of us on social media. Obviously follow the blog. We are on the Twitter machine, which you can find us at Barrie Colts. You can use that same handle on Instagram and Facebook, and you will find content from us. As well as us, we have our own personal Twitters that we are very active on. Mine is RyanNoble66. Yours is?
Ryan P. McArthur. So lots of stuff on there. I mean, just general OHL content. I just posted a top 20 OHL draft for the top 20 ranking for the 2019 OHL draft.
Great job on that.
So there's just tons of stuff. Like it's the coverage is nonstop. We spend way too much time doing this, and we're super fans of the OHL and especially the Barrie Colts. So
absolutely.
Make sure you give us a follow and check out that content.
I'd be doing a disservice if I didn't demand that you all also follow Justin Staples, who we've yet to convince to come on to an episode of this. Don't worry, we're trying to pressure him into doing one because we specialize in peer pressure around here. So we'll hopefully get him on an episode here maybe in the new year.
Yeah, Staples is Justin Stapleton is Staples1311, so make sure you give him a follow there.
Definitely. And also, if you're looking to rep the blog, you can go over to our shirt shop, which we've recently changed over to tpublic.com.
Get your Dr. Pekka shirt.
Get some Dr. Pekka. We got some NHL 96 style images of, I don't want to say the player just so we don't get sued, but you can buy a player which is called 61C. We've also got a variety of nonsensical wrestling themed images, as well as we got some Kai Edmund stuff, but not him because we don't want to get in trouble. And it's not Kia either. So lots of stuff. Go over. Like I said, use very, very close at the TeePublic. We've also got lots of links on the website as to how you can find that stuff. And there's a lot of sales coming up at the website as well. So feel free to go in and spend all of your money. Or at least some
just
of it.
a good way to support the blog. And like we mentioned last time, blogs aren't free, so free to run. So yeah,
Get it. And and that's pretty much it for today. So
all right.
We would like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays or whatever offends people least.
Yeah, Merry Christmas and go Colts go.
Absolutely. Thank you for tuning in.
All right, thanks a lot.